Welcome to episode 2 of Basically a Therapist, but without the degree. I am Lauren, and I'm so excited that you're here. So today I wanted to talk about being besties with your spouse and what that means and what that looks like. So I've been reading this book called The 7 Principles for Making a Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman, and it has been so good. If you've never heard of the Gottmans or the Gottman Institute, I 10 out of 10 recommend that you follow them, pick up some of their books. Incredible resource. And I will also link some of their resources in the show notes as well. But basically, Dr. John Gottman did a study, and the results that came from that study indicated that people that are best friends with their spouse, that have a solid friendship with their spouse, are the ones that have the most successful marriages. And so, it makes sense, right? Like when you think about it, it makes sense. If you've been married longer than 2 days, that it's not always going to be blissful joy and hands all over each other and I miss you, no, I miss you more type of love. Like it's just not going to be that. That's not realistic and it's not long-term. There are going to be seasons of romantic love, and there's going to be seasons where they're lower, and that's when your friendship is going to have to kick in and really take over when those seasons are lower. There's seasons that, the passion fades because there's a new baby and you guys are sleep deprived and exhausted and adjusting to a new life with a new human in your home. Or there's, you could be grieving, or work is stressful, or the kids are stressful and there's no energy. And so it's through those seasons that your friendship with each other really carries your relationship through. And so I want to talk about just a few foundational bricks of what a friendship with your spouse looks like. So brick 1, love and respect, like absolutely love and respect. So it's foundational in all relationships, honestly. Like love and relationship should be the foundation for every relationship, friendship, marriages, dating, work. Like it should just be the bare minimum that respect and love are there. So throughout the Bible, we are called to love others. And that's just how we're called to treat everybody. Like that's what Jesus said is the standard, is to love everybody. And so I wanted to look up what respect means, because I feel like we have a pretty good understanding of love, and there's different types of love, but I wanted to know a little bit more about what respect means. And I want you to hear it. So the Merriam-Webster definition of respect is an act of giving particular attention or consideration, which consideration means to take into account. And then respect also means high or special regard, esteem. And so what does esteem mean? To esteem something means to consider something worthy or valuable. Like how powerful is that? Like you are considering your spouse to be worthy and valuable, to be treated with respect and love. I love that. So even during times of conflict or differing opinions, love and respect are still a requirement for a happy and successful marriage. I think that can be hard for a lot of people, accepting somebody for their differences and just accepting who they are without the need to change them. And that is a sign of love, and that is a sign of respect, because you love them and they are enough for you as they are and not who you want them to be. So what else can love and respect look like? Well, this can look like, placing value on their opinions, again, even if they're different than yours, having a loyalty to them and standing with them. This could really look like doing so with your parents. That can be a really big area where a partner can feel disrespected and unloved, is when the spouse will take the side of their parents over their spouse. Being a united team, that's really important. Those things are important. Those things show love and respect, because when you got married, you left your family and you became one. And so you two are a team. It's not you and your family, it's you and your spouse. And that's a really big deal for a lot of people. Another way is speaking well about them, building them up in front of them, like at them, to them, and behind their back too. Like never talking down about them behind their back or even in front of people, handling that in private and just building up in person. So one of the phrases that I've heard before is criticize in private and praise in public. And that has never been truer. And you want to make sure that you're doing that with your spouse. Never criticize in public, never criticize in front of people. That is something to be done behind closed doors. Also, when you are speaking to them or criticizing, speaking in a kind tone. The way that we speak with our body language and our tone is really important, and that shows a lot of respect or disrespect. And then just honoring each other's needs. You may not understand, but just honoring what their needs are. If they need space, honor that. Like, you guys don't need to be all over each other all the time. Like, honor the autonomy of your spouse as well. So let's talk about brick 2. Brick 2 is trust and commitment, and they're a requirement for a successful relationship, in my opinion. Like, if you don't have trust and commitment with one another, like, what do you even have? That's my opinion, but I can't even fathom a relationship where you don't have the trust with somebody. It's just like, there's just no peace. And so it's not, with trust, it's not these big, grandiose, huge gestures like expensive vacations or buying a really expensive gift. Like, that's not what builds trust. What builds trust is the everyday, the small moments, the mundane. And so what that can look like is, for me, an example would be when I am hanging out with my husband and I'm talking and he puts his phone down and he lets me know that I am a priority to him and that he is tuned into me and he is listening, because that creates, like, that action builds trust, and it allows me to open up and to share with him and to ultimately, like, feel safe with him. And so that small little act, he just did it the other day and it just made my heart swell. It felt so good. It was so small, but it's such a huge statement saying, like, you're a priority. You're important to me. Another way that you can build up trust is doing what you say you're going to do. Follow through on time commitments that you make with your spouse. Follow through with commitments that you said you're going to do around the house, like that project that you've been putting off. It's time to do it. It's time to follow through with those commitments and not just say things just for lip service, but to actually build that trust and commitment. And then the last part of the trust and commitment brick is assume the best about your spouse and your relationship. Have a positive point of view. Because it's when you have a negative mindset about your spouse and your relationship that chances are your relationship probably isn't doing the best that it can be. And it's probably not the healthiest that it's ever been. And you're probably feeling some sort of disconnection there. And when you're assuming the worst about your spouse, it wears down your trust of them and it wears down your commitment, and it makes it harder for you to say, like, I am in this, I am here, because you're only thinking of the negative and you're only thinking about how they've messed up, and you're not thinking about all of the wonderful qualities that they have or all of the things that they're doing for you, or it's just hard to see that anymore. You become blind to the positive qualities or the positive things that they're doing. And so you begin to, like, take things personally, and you take things as an attack, and you take on this spirit of offense with them when that's just not necessary. And I know that there are some valid reasons. Like, yes, I am not minimizing why you have a negative point of view with your spouse or why, like, you just don't trust them. Like, I understand there are a lot of valid reasons for that. However, the bare bones of a relationship, you need to believe the best about your spouse if you want a solid relationship with them. And if you find yourself here, like, welcome to the club. I've been here many times. It's not foreign territory to me. And so there is no shame like I said, you're not alone. I'm sure there's many of us that have been there. I'm sure there's many of us that are there right now. And so it's okay, but it's not okay to stay there. And so something you can do to reflect on, to kind of help bring up those feelings of trust and commitment to them is to think about why you fell in love with them. Look back on the memories of like earlier in your relationship, and think about what you appreciate about them, whether it's how hardworking they are, whether it's the way that they handled a situation that they did it really well, call it out. Whether it's their parenting or how selfless they are, how hot they are, like just focus on that. Just bring back those positive thoughts and feelings about your spouse, and it'll do a world of good for your relationship. And so brick number 3 is being attuned with one another. So what does attunement mean? So it actually means when you are emotionally connected with your spouse. You know each other's likes and dislikes. You know each other's favorite foods and activities and struggles that they're dealing with right now with work or kids or their friends or whatever. You pay attention to what they're saying and how they're feeling. And I know that this may not sound entirely like massively romantic, but these are deposits that you are making into your relationship's bank account. Like think of your relationship as a bank account where you withdraw and you deposit. And obviously, as in any bank account, like we want to keep depositing. We want as much money in there as possible. Amen. But this is where you can deposit into your relationship's account. And it shows that you care and that you want to know about them. And when you truly understand each other and check in with each other, it allows for emotional intimacy that can withstand those difficult phases of life, whether they're planned or unplanned. You'll be less intimidated by the changes that come your way when you know your spouse, when you just know, like you know what they're going to think, what they're going to feel. You have this like certainty in your relationship about that. This can be tricky though, because being attuned with somebody else requires you to understand yourself first. And I feel like a lot of people just don't really know who they are. They don't understand who they are, what they want, what they need, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, what their triggers are. They don't understand themselves. And so if you don't understand yourself, how can you expect somebody else to understand you too? Somebody may be really emotionally mature and can see through it, but it helps that you have done the work to know yourself too. So make sure that you know yourself too. But in the show notes, I'm going to link Gottman's Love Map Questionnaire. And this resource is helpful for you to know like how connected you are with your spouse. It helps to kind of measure where you're at with your spouse and how connected and how much you know your spouse. And by no means is this a way to shame you if the results come back and you're like, wow, I actually know nothing about them. Like, it's okay. But this is a tool for you to use to get to know each other better and to find out where you guys are on this journey of your marriage and your relationship together. So that'll be linked in the show notes. I do want to say that if you don't feel confident that your relationship has some of those or even all of those bricks, it doesn't mean that your relationship is doomed and just burn and walk away. Like, that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. There is no relationship that is too far gone for God. There's just not. It doesn't exist. He can restore and redeem any relationship, any and all of them. But it requires for you to turn to him, and it requires sacrificing your control, your expectations, and surrendering them to God and saying like, here you go. I give up. Not give up in a way where you quit trying, but I give up trying to control the situation, and I give it all to you, and you can make this marriage so much better than I ever could. And so I'm trusting in you that you are going to make this good. And another way is to get a really good therapist. A good therapist can do wonders for a relationship. And so I 10 out of 10 recommend a really good therapist. But if you feel like you don't have the time or the finances at this time to seek therapy, just have the conversation with one another. Stop putting off the uncomfortable, hard conversations and sit down and talk about it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But blaming and shaming are going to get you exactly nowhere when you do this. And so that's why I would encourage you to be curious with your spouse. Like, be super curious. Ask them where they would rate your relationship based off of the above bricks. How would they rate that? Like, how would they rate you and how you show up? That's going to be a tough one. That's really tough. In order for this to be successful, in order for your check-in with your spouse to be successful and to get your relationship somewhere, you cannot have a spirit of offense on you. You cannot take things personally, because your marriage is more important than your ego. And so I would encourage you to set aside your ego, set aside the defensiveness, the deflecting, the blaming, and just open your heart to what your spouse is saying. You don't have to agree with what they think and say and believe, but you can listen and you can validate and you can understand where they're coming from. But once again, defensiveness and deflecting and being angry is not going to work. It doesn't get you anywhere. It just shuts that person down. It kind of shuts down any opportunity to really grow. But I am so excited to see you grow confidently in yourself and in your marriage. It's hard work. It is hard work, but the hard work is so worth the peace and the freedom that you'll experience within yourself and with your spouse as well. And so I know that you got this. I'm cheering you on. Yeah, it's just worth it. Like, a healthy relationship is just, I think we build a lot of things up in our heads, and it doesn't need to be as big or as difficult as we've made it in our head. And so I know that you've got this. I am praying for you, and I'm in your corner cheering you on. Thank you so much for tuning in to Basically a Therapist, but without the degree. Check out the show notes for the suggested resources that I mentioned in the episode, and then hit that like button and subscribe. And if you're really feeling this episode, share it with somebody that you think it'll encourage, and I will catch you on the next episode.